So take me back to 2010. Where were you working? What were you doing? And how did you get into property?
So 2010, I bought my first property. Back then, I was a heating engineer. And I suppose the no nonsense approach is, well, I bought my first was a HMO, and we converted it. It was just a terrace property. We converted a 3 bed into a 4 bed terrace property. We had no idea what we were doing, and we just heard that properties on this particular street did really well as student rentals. So we're
So
like,
you were
okay, well,
working full time, and this was just like chat down the pub, or property's really good, let's give it a go thing, was it?
basically no education, just hearsay really, and we let's give it a go. And with never bear in mind, I'd never done a big refurb before. I'd never rented a property out to anyone before, never mind to many students in one house, which obviously that's what a student HMO is, and it needed a massive refurb.
And you're working full time at this time?
So I was working as a heating engineer, so installing boilers and central heating for people. So I suppose I had the skill set to do that part of the refurb, but still, it's not just installing the central heating system in a student HMO conversion. It's everything else. It's like knocking walls down, putting stud walls or plastering, everything that you need to do, and then the project management that comes with that.
Okay, so you've talked very openly to me about this project. It was a long time ago, but you said that you didn't understand property values, you didn't really check tenant demand, you just had heard that HMOs worked well on that street and that you were only about 80% confident. Do you look back and think, oh God, what was I playing at?
I suppose definitely I could look back and think that, yes, but that's only with the hindsight of knowledge that have built up over the 15 years that came after that. And I suppose nowadays our due diligence is second to none. We do so much on behalf of our clients in order to make sure their investment is a success. And never did any of that back then for that first deal.
No, absolutely. So, talk to me about the refurb. You say it was chaotic and you had no decent local trades. What went wrong during the refurb process?
So we get it, it's just like who's locally, and you're trying to build up that local contact base, starting pretty much from scratch, apart from someone that can install central heating, of course, like myself. And I remember one specific thing that was quite stressful is because they're student HMOs, we'd actually already signed up the students, and they had a move-in date. So we were like, right, okay, we've got to get this finished by that date, otherwise we've lost our students. And obviously what refurbs are like, they get delayed, one thing leads to another. And the plasterer basically just turned around and said, I can't get this finished by that date that you need it finished by. I just can't. And we were like, well, we needed to. And he was like, I can't. And I was like, so we just said to him, look, just get the plaster on the walls. It doesn't have to look great. And what he did exactly what we asked him to do, and it didn't look great. The walls were horrendous, they were bumpy. It looked like sometimes you can get nice smooth render on the outside of a property, and then it looks like on some properties they put it on so it purposely looks like in stages, like almost like a pattern, like a textured pattern. Well, it looked like that, but on the inside where they're basically always meant to be flat plastered walls.
Brilliant. But you got your students in time?
Students didn't care. They came in, they loved the property. Not one complaint, which was obviously a big relief for us. And so they were in, they were happy, but it was a freshly refurbished house. But also you got to remember back then, and we're talking 15 years ago, HMOs weren't, I don't think there was ever such thing as a luxury HMO back then. No one probably ever said them words ever. So because it was a freshly refurbished property, they were just really happy with that back then, even though it did have bumpy walls.
Absolutely. And so you got you got your not tenants, your students in, they were happy, they were paying you rent, and suddenly you're getting some what seemed like passive cash flow every month. What did that feel like? Explain to me how you felt during that process.
Fantastic. So I've never experienced having, you could call it passive income before in my life. So obviously, as a heating engineer, I had to turn up on the Monday to Friday, do my job, get paid, but you're trading your time for money. Whereas with the student HMO, yes, okay, we had to put a lot of work in up front to get it ready for the tenants. But after they were in, as long as we'd done it properly and set everything up properly from the start, there was very little we had to do for the following 9 months until they then moved out again. And so that was the first time I'd ever experienced the passive income from that. And I suppose that's what gave me the bug for property investing.
Absolutely. And you talked then about not having to worry too much if you'd set things up. What was compliance like 15 years ago? Because things are very different now, a lot stricter, aren't they, with regulations?
Oh, I think things have completely changed since then. So I remember there was like a there's like a grey line. Oh, should we put a fire extinguisher and a smoke blanket in? And we did actually put them in, but there was no definitive rule to say we had to put them in, but we put them in anyway. And the students were just setting them off and having a great time with them, obviously, after had a few drinks, of course. It's like a toy for them, isn't it? But apart from that, there was very little compliance that we actually had to do on the property. And I think since then, we've got to do all sorts of things. So it's fire doors, it's smoke panels, it's AOV, all these really expensive things, and it is for the better. But I suppose back then, because we didn't have to do them things, I suppose there was a less of a boundary for us to actually enter that student HMO market.
So you had quite a gung-ho attitude to it. Do you think you would have overcome the problems you would have faced if you'd been doing it today? Do you think it would have put you off if you were starting now?
Well, today I would never invest in a student HMO today. So I invest in buy-to-let properties. So my definition of them is typically a terrace property. We do light refurbishments and we rent them out to long-term tenants. And the reason we like that type of investment is it's much lower risk and there's much less moving parts, and the upfront cash is much less. And also, you don't have all the drama and headspace that follows after the property is rented out. For example, HMOs, it's the typical story: someone's robbed someone else's milk, and there's a big drama, and then next thing someone's moving out, and you've got a rental for it, and you don't get any of that when you rent out to long-term tenants.
So that was 2010. You continued to build your own portfolio, didn't you, for the next about 10 years?
So I slowly built my own portfolio in the background over the next few years, yes.
What properties were those?
So again, it's terrace properties mainly, but I do at the moment. So my HMO, that first HMO that I bought, that's gone because, as I mentioned, we just think that property investing, in my eyes, it should be as passive and as low risk as it possibly can be, because I really don't want to be giving myself a second job. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to achieve from property investing. So anything higher risk like HMOs, Airbnbs, I just don't do. It's just terrace properties, rent out to longer term tenants. Having said that, although I've got rid of that first HMO, I still do have an Airbnb property, and it's caused me loads of issues.
Wow. Okay. So, any plans? What are you going to do with those issues? You're going to sell the property? You're going to outsource it?
Well, the issues that it caused are, first of all, the managing agent. So when you've got something like an Airbnb or HMO, your income is highly dependent on the managing agent's performance, because there's so many moving parts that they just need to be on it all the time. So my first managing agent was great. It was all going well. And then they got bought out by someone else, and this other company came in and basically just sailed off into the sunset with everyone's rent. So everyone that owned properties with them just lost loads of rent. And luckily I was only exposed to one property, but I know people that had multiple properties with them and obviously lost multiple sets of rent. So that was obviously one big issue there. And it's just a bit like the Wild West Airbnb managing agent. That's what it felt like anyway. We've got another managing agent now and they're performing much better. And thank you for their performance, because they are great. But it's just not my strategy, and I just like low risk, passive. And you did say, well, are you going to sell it? What are you going to do with it? How are you going to get? The problem is now I've got this Airbnb. It's full of all this furniture that we've got. It's got fridges, dishwashers, like beds. And so if I wanted to now like turn that into like to rent out to long-term tenants, I'd have to get rid of all the furniture. And it's just, obviously that's the job in itself. We'd lose money because we both bought most of it new. and you lose when you sell, and it's not as easy as you'd think just flipping it to rent out to long-term tenants. So keep it for an Airbnb for a little bit longer maybe.
That's the one you're sticking with for now. Fair enough, fair enough. So we then get to 2020 and you decide that you want to start this sourcing business that we've talked about. Now, you put out a very honest post on Facebook, which I spotted a couple of weeks ago, and I want to talk about it because I think it's really powerful for a lot of our listeners. So, your Facebook post talked about Sunday dread and perfect timing. So, explain to me what it's all about.
So when I had a corporate job, I just think I never really, in hindsight, that lifestyle just never worked for me. And I suppose the telltale signs were the Sunday dread. It was like, so I'm starting a new week, and the day before, I'm dreading it. So it's like, but you don't know what you don't know. You just thought maybe that's normal, but it's not since I've left that corporate career and as you say, set up my own business that I realised that I'm much more suited now to what I'm doing now, owning my own business, managing my own days, and I'm responsible basically for everything. But I suppose and now I don't get the Sunday dread. So even though I've probably got much more responsibility than what I ever had, there's no Sunday dread, which is fantastic because that is not a nice feeling. I don't know if you've ever had it yourself.
No, well, quite. I know exactly what you're talking about. So you said when you were trying to figure out whether or not you could leave your job and go full time into property, instead of asking what if it all goes wrong, you asked, what does my family actually need? Explain to me what that means. What's the difference?
Well, what property has given me is flexibility in how I own my own days, my weeks, my months. And so, for example, with my corporate job, there's no way I could drop my kids off at nursery or school and pick them up again because I just have to be either commuting to work or actually be in work. And you've got that rigid start at 8, finish at 5, whatever it is. So just impossible to actually do that. So that's one thing, that's one benefit that it gives. I suppose it's just because you're not reliant on trading your time for money. As property, once you've done that work and set it up properly from the start, then the money's coming in regardless of whether you are trading time, extra time for money, if you see what. And I think then what you get as a benefit from that as well is if you invest properly, even whilst you've got your full-time job, you're able to build up a plan B income so that you don't have to work if you don't want to, maybe sometime in the future when you hit that plan B income figure. Or maybe you want to get something for when you retire. So you might be planning for your retirement, and property is that vehicle in order to do that. So, and then other people, they want something as a legacy for their loved ones. People have got different motivations for investing in property, and for me it was having that plan B income and having the flexibility to work when I want to work.
Absolutely. And you touched on it there, but I think the phrase knowing your numbers is really important. If you're going to quit your job, you really need to know how much your family need to live on for the next few months, don't you? Not like a luxury lifestyle, but what you really need just to get through. And I think that was really important for you, was working out what those numbers were to survive for the next few months. But then, of course, as these things always go, your wife fell pregnant, didn't she, quite quickly after you had left your job? So did that panic you, or did that motivate you more?
So correct. So before I quit my corporate job, as you said, I did the maths. I was like, okay, look, we can make this work, and I've got enough income from property to make this work for this period of time. But what wasn't factored into their maths was that after I quit was that my wife was going to tell me she was pregnant the week after I quit, which is obviously fantastic news, but it wasn't factored in at that point in time. But I think that did light a fire in me and just allow me to push that bit more, because when you're having a baby, from the point you're having a baby to the point you're having a baby, the amount you get done in that time, just like you never get so much stuff done in that time in your life. It feels that way anyway, and this was no different.
Okay, excellent. So it was a great motivator. So I think there's probably a lot of people who are in your position who are stuck in that Sunday dread, chasing the next promotion or the next job title. Have you got any words of advice for them?
Well, if they if they wanted to get involved in property, there is always a way to get involved. And as I mentioned already, property can give you that flexibility to build up a plan B income, build up something in retirement, or build up a legacy for the kids. And there's many ways to get into property. So if you've got the cash available now, then it's worth looking into how you can invest that properly. And if you don't have the cash available, then there's still different ways to get into property. So there's all sorts of different strategies you can use. So it's worth definitely looking into as a vehicle to get over that Sunday dread.
Education is such an important part of it, isn't it?
Correct. It's number one.
So you've mentioned your plan B income. What does that look like in reality? Because we see a lot of stuff on social media of perhaps property people living the high life. What does it look like for you? Is it just a stable day-to-day life? Are you looking to retire early, go abroad? What's the future look like for you, Pat?
So the plan B income, just to define it how I define it. First of all, what I like to do is calculate like my security number, and we touched on it briefly, and that is like how much, if I just cut back all like my luxuries, how much do I need to survive in my family? So that's your security number. And then after that, I'd look at my financial independence number for my family. And that would include basically what your living costs right now, including maybe going on the holidays and stuff like that. Look at my financial independence number for my family. And that would include basically what your living costs right now, including maybe going on the holidays and stuff like that. And then once you them numbers, you can figure out how many properties you need in order to achieve them numbers. Obviously, you want to achieve your security number first from property, and then it's your financial independence number after that. So your question was about what does
your future look like?
What does it look like for me in the future? So, obviously, I want to continue building my portfolio because there's all sorts. You can get your security number, you can get your financial independence number, and then you can keep going up. The ladder keeps going, so you can go. What were the names now? It was luxury, financial independence. Then there's like an opulence, and then you can keep going up. And you can keep hitting more targets. So I love investing in property. I'll always invest in property. And I've got a target just like everyone else. And my target, I would love to live in another country one day maybe, and maybe go somewhere sunny. I know a lot of people are moving to Dubai at the moment. I don't know if that would be on the cards for us, but we'll see.
Okay, fantastic. All right, are you ready to go into a quick fire round?
Let's do it.
All right, brilliant. One word to describe that first deal.
Exciting.
If you had 100k appear in your bank account, tax-free, interest-free, what would you do?
That's 2 buy-to-let properties in Liverpool.
Okay, very good. Your biggest myth in property investing?
Airbnb.
Okay.
Basically, it's just the sexiest strategies. They're so easy to sell, and there's people out there that are selling them because they look at the numbers, they have the shiny brochures, they look like these amazing show home houses. So they're very easy to sell, but the reality of them is, in my opinion, not great investments.
Okay. Spreadsheet or a notebook?
Oh, spreadsheets all day long. It's what investors like, isn't it? It's all on the spreadsheet.
One mistake you see beginners repeat?
I think over analysis paralysis is probably the one that I see a lot of people repeat. And I was no different. Like, I was stuck in that, looking at spreadsheets, of course, and trying to think, what if it all goes wrong? What if this happens? What if that happens? And you're never going to be 100% sure, especially on your first investment. And I think just being comfortable with being the 80% sure is where you need to be in order to get yourself to make that first investment, because you're never going to hit that 100% confidence, I'm sure.
I agree. Refurb headaches or tenant headaches?
Well, what happens, I would say refurb headaches are much more common from my experience. But it's very rare we get issues with tenants, very rare.
Yeah, I'll take that.
So I think refurb headaches.
Okay. Best thing about Liverpool?
Oh, the people. People are fantastic. It's so friendly. Always got a joke up the sleeve. Obviously, the property investment's fantastic as well.
I was going to say, actually, just as an aside from the quick fire round, what are house prices like in Liverpool? Are they what would be considered affordable? I'm not familiar with the market.
So Liverpool at the moment is one of the best places to invest in the world, and it's for three main reasons. Number one, we've got the highest gross yields out of all the UK major cities. which maximises your monthly cash flow. Secondly, we've got £14 billion of planned and ongoing regeneration in the city. And that's like unheard of for Liverpool. We've never had that amount of stimulus. And the benefit of that is capital appreciation. So property values are likely to go up in value. And then finally, we've also got very affordable houses in the city. So we can currently get houses, very good buy-to-let properties for under £100,000. I think them days are numbered because of all the regeneration that's going on. And how much money you need at the moment to invest with a mortgage is around 55 minimum, between 55 and £70,000.
It's interesting. Okay. The strategy you'd avoid if you were starting again today?
Anything apart from buy-to-lets, terraced houses, rent out to long-term tenants. Definitely avoid any of these sexier strategies like Airbnbs and HMOs, in my opinion.
It's interesting. I like your clarity you have on it. It's really good. Finish the sentence. The moment I knew I had to step up was...
Oh, probably week after I left my job and my wife said she was pregnant.
I think that probably was, wasn't it? And describe your property journey so far in 3 words.
It's a roller coaster.
I'll say that. It really is, isn't it?
It's ups and downs with everything. Obviously, probably the most stable part of that roller coaster ride is the buy-to-let property investing. But then when you add to it doing the HMOs, the Airbnbs, there's your ups and downs. And on top of that, the sourcing business is a challenging business as well, but also very good fun.
And of course, in buy-to-lets, the legislation is changing massively this year with the renters' rights. So I'm sure that's keeping you on your toes as well.
We've looked into that. We don't think any of the changes are going to affect us that much at all, to be honest with you. And because all our properties already have got pass all the things that are coming into play anyway, because we make sure we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's already. So I think we'll be absolutely fine.
Excellent. Pat, it's been a really interesting chat. If people wanted to know more about what you do, how can they get in touch with you?
So you can visit my website, of course, which is totalpropertygroup.co.uk. You can catch me on LinkedIn, which is Pat J. Harper, or any of the other social media platforms.
Excellent stuff. Wow, it's been lovely. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Danielle. It's been grateful.
You're welcome. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please do drop us a comment or subscribe. The more people we can help by listening to these First Deal Diaries, the more beneficial it is for all of us. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of First Deal Diaries.